So welcome back to Confessions of a Time Monk. In this segment, we're going to speak to Victor about what his view on consciousness and what's currently happening on the planet is. So I think it's probably clear to most everyone who are watching this that we're clearly in a very specific time in terms of social, political, medical, on every level, there's clearly something happening. So Victor, what's your perspective right now on what's happening in we'll call it the consciousness movement? What's happening on the planet now?
Well, basically, I think people are waking up. I think it's an unprecedented level of consciousness that's, I think, long overdue, but we just have to accept that we are where we are in this reality. I believe that the level of people, or the speed at which people are waking up, I think the most wonderful thing is about how people are searching for truth. So regardless of what they're being told, the general public or us are being told about what is the truth, I see around me that people are questioning that.
And I think this is clear. I mean, we have so many sources now to understand, what's real news, what's false news, what is truth. From our perspective, there's not absolute truth. No. There are many, many different facets to truth. But we seem to be hearing online about things like disclosure theory and, are there non-terrestrial, extraterrestrial interventions happening on the planet? So you're working with technology that we might say feels a bit futuristic. Have you had any kind of contact and help with this from forces other than just your own creative mind?
Well, the answer to that is obviously yes, and I've enjoyed a great working relationship. When I talk about our team.
And you often will refer to your team.
Yeah, because it's a team effort.
And I used to think, he's got a great group working back in the office back there.
Well, we have that too. We have a great team working in the office, and we have a great deal of support in the manufacture of all the things that we do. I mean, that is a real, that's in this time zone, in this reality.
In this dimension.
In this dimension, exactly.
But you had at some point you had a meeting with. How did you first come into contact with the intelligences that are working with you?
This is again a long time ago. It was back in the early 90s. There was a group called Hilarion, which the energy of that, the voice of that was, they would say, there is a group of us in terms of consciousness. And I speak for all of us. There'll be one voice for this whole consciousness. And this was a very technical type of group that would supply information about how to build things.
So this group that you're speaking about is not an incarnate group. This is a disincarnate group that is now being channeled through one member of that group, or
yes, I think it's
one part of the consciousness of that group.
I think they say that they have one consciousness, but there are many beings a part of that consciousness, but they speak as one, and they speak through one voice.
And so we're speaking about a unity consciousness, which some of our viewers may be familiar with and others not. Yeah. But in fact, we tend to look at our lives as being very individualistic, which is not always the case with other beings throughout the universe.
Indeed. So there are various different groups. I mean, this was just my first introduction to it through a friend of mine who was a healer, and this was my first introduction. But the information coming through was actually very interesting because it was about helping humanity. Now I know, this is 20, 30 years ago. I know that in that time we've teamed up with other teams that are helping humanity. And there are lots of teams. We're working with the good teams that are trying to evolve humanity in terms of helping raise the consciousness of people on the planet. But ultimately, at the end of the day, it's easy to detect which are the frauds among the information that's coming in. Because I know a lot of people worry about, oh, I'm not sure if this ET or this psychic information is any good.
Which are valid worries. They're absolutely valid worries. And in fact, as people know, I live in a community dominor where many times we'll get guests who come saying, we have channeled information for you, channeled information, and we'll always look to discover the source before we utilize or take any of that information seriously.
Yeah, there's a couple of techniques actually that I learned through my teachers, of which I have a lot of gratitude for. There's a lot of techniques because I know psychically people can be interfered with either by somebody psychically, pushing some sort of agenda, whether it's a planetary thing, whether it's a particular group, a particular social group, a particular religious group. There's all ways to psychically influence people. What's harder to do is to actually to interfere with somebody's heart. So my technique is to, first of all, to receive intuitive information, perhaps in the form of pictures, perhaps in the form of words or ideas, but then to actually find a place in the heart to verify the truth of that. Because my experience is that if these energies that come in are good energies, then they will carry just this beautiful energy that resonates in the heart, almost as though it's nectar, for me anyway. So I was taught this. So not only for most people there's just this psychic thing, oh, I've channeled this or I've channeled that, which may be good, but actually to double check it, there's a way of actually finding the resonance of truth. And it's this beautiful feeling in the heart of, oh yeah, actually this being feels really good. Because the dark side, dare I say that word, the dark side, if they try to interfere with humans, they don't come in with a nice sweet. They can't
artificially manufacture that.
They come in as a knife in the heart type of feeling.
Interesting.
So they can't kid the humans about the content of their nice message when actually they got this horrible energy. What a
great marking device to understand.
It's a double check for finding out whether the communication is being interfered with. And the other thing to do is to, as we're on the subject, is it serving humanity, or are you being?
And that's the big question. Is this personal? Is this helping me personally, or is this in fact something that's of benefit to a collective?
Yeah, we'll give you this technology if you do this. It's like, well, no, actually. Yeah. If this technology is for sharing,
yes,
and it's for helping people raise their consciousness, then that's great, and everything else is not allowed. So that's the way we've gone on. For 25, 30 years. That's the methodology that we use for checking out all of our correspondence in terms of our communications with other teams. But we've got a great team. To be fair, we've got. I call them the Blue Team. That's my nickname for them, because it's a sort of a friendly way of working with the Blue Team, because they turn up as blue.
So who are these entities and where are they from your perspective, your knowledge of them?
Well, there's this particular team that I'm thinking about is something I'm actually going to say now. Oddly enough, I might have to cut that bit. Anyway.
Would this team right now have any particular message they might want to convey?
Well, I think the answer is yes. So I think there are great changes in terms of consciousness that is happening. I mean, we've been given some lovely technology in this big system, our bioresonance system, for helping people evolve their consciousness. And it's come straight through the Blue Team. And the Blue Team say that that everybody on the planet is going through this shift of consciousness, whereby their core issues are coming up for healing. And those core issues are so ingrained in the very fabric of our being that it's so incredibly difficult to release them. However, certain technologies, probably we're not alone in this. I know of our technology, but I'm sure there are other technologies out there and different modalities for clearing this stuff. But we've been given some technology that allows for that deep-rooted, those deep-rooted conditioning things to be lessened and removed, because at some point in the future, and I think the very near future, the vibration of the planet is going to rise so much. It's said that we're moving into this photon belt. 30 years ago, it's like, wow, that's the first time I heard about the photon belt. But actually, it feels as though we're moving into an area of higher activity, higher vibrational activity. And I think the whole planet is moving
people are
into this.
feeling this. I mean, I think people might not be able to identify what it is they're feeling as specifically as you are, as someone who's sensitive to it. But I think everyone I'm speaking to knows and feels that there's something's different right now. Something's happening.
So in order to support that process, because people are having such a problem dealing with their deep-rooted issues, whether it's a religious thing or whether it's just conditioning from school or from their parents or there's such some deep-rooted issues in every possible imaginable thing that humans can do. People have all this stuff that they're holding on to. These new waves of energy are not going to take prisoners. It's going to come up in that person. So the people who have through whatever means, whether it's been personal work that they've done,
spiritual
work, personal work, group work, whatever it is, to release that stuff. When these vibrational patterns get stronger and stronger and stronger, which is what's going to happen, I believe.
I think it is what's happening.
It is what's happening, but it's going to get even stronger. I doubt whether we're, just a quick looking intuitively, I doubt whether we're 50% through yet.
Wow. So that's going to
50%,
So when we see things rising like the politics in the United States, how does that connect to this? What's your feeling about it? We have a rise in consciousness, which seems to be putting on the world stage archetypes that are, feeling very dark somehow.
Well, I think it's a great thing. I think the changes in America, although a lot of people will turn around and say individual things are incredibly bad and this person should be not the president, or this person should or shouldn't. It doesn't really matter. But the point about it is that people are getting up off of their couches and they are saying, actually, this is not right.
Right.
And that's the most wonderful thing.
So seeing the turnout in Washington, for example, I mean, this was a collective that came together to say, we don't support this.
It's a time of great change.
I mean, if you just look at the energy patterns of what's happened in the past months there, what do you see visually?
What I see visually is I see people finding a truth. They find that truth in their heart. They know something's not right, and they're prepared to actually stand up and say, actually, that doesn't feel right. I'm going to do something about this. And this is what creates change. It takes it can take just one person, but it takes a lot of people thinking, this isn't true, I need to do something about it. And I think this is a revolution. I think we're in a revolution.
I would agree with you. I would really agree with you at this point. Yeah. So, Victor, what do you see in the next couple of years? Do you think the kind of increase that we're going to see will be happening as rapidly as the next 2 years, for example?
I think it's going to be a very rapid change, actually.
Do you think reality will look different when this change happens?
I hope so. I think if the change carries on, I think it's probably exponential. I think it's like an idea. If you put an idea out there, it's infectious. And you can't not have if somebody gives you an idea, you can't not know about the idea when they've given it to you. You can't suddenly push it away.
Right, you can't. It's there. It's seated,
and it's infinitely shareable. So I think the idea of as our consciousness increases and as we're looking for truth, I think the essence is we're all looking for truth. We've been told that there are truths or the truths we've been told are actually untrue. And in our hearts, we're finding a resonance for, hang on, this is not true. And there's a deep yearning to find out the truth. And I think that deep yearning is enough to propel people through this time of change that's coming into coming out the other side in a very positive way. I think there's huge change on the horizon.
And you feel we're not alone in this? You feel we have support on a galactic level for this?
I think we're coming to the age where we could possibly qualify as a planet to move onto the next level. And I think we're getting to that stage where, we're pushing a change in consciousness, but it takes a lot of people to make that change. Let's
speak about this for a moment. So in our school of thought, we often speak about a galactic council where beings who are evolved enough have the right to sit at whatever the table is on that level of the galactic council, are recognized on a galactic level. Do you think that as humanity, as earthbound humanity, we're in the final stages of potentially qualifying to re-enter that circle?
I think potential stages of qualifying is probably a way of putting it. I mean, I don't think, certainly at the moment, the planet or the people on the planet, which is all of us, have chosen to go down a particular path which is unsustainable.
Right.
Well, the consciousness on the planet is rising at an incredibly fast rate, and I think it will rise so quickly that people will start waking up all over the planet, even if they were, completely asleep.
So the non-linear leap in consciousness is potentially upon us.
I think so, yeah, and I think people are going to feel in their heart that they need to take action of something. But ultimately, we've gotten to this place on our timeline. As I mentioned, one timeline, the one we've opted for, because we haven't, we've opted for a timeline that's unsustainable, and we've gone down that path. However, I think because of these shifts in consciousness, I think there's another timeline, and I think that timeline relates to this shift in consciousness and how people are waking up. So it's a sort of a shift away from doom and gloom to actually a place where the planet will sustain at the end of the day. I'm not so sure that everybody on the planet's going to sustain, but the planet will sustain.
So I have an optimistic view of this, because my view of this is, if we're able to create this shift in consciousness, because time is nonlinear, in fact, that change could ripple backwards to correct the things that are already so wrong.
It could do. I have this phrase that I've been using as a personal mantra. And this phrase is to align myself with the optimum temporal reality. And I believe, for me, when I first started meditating with this and chanting it to myself in my meditation, I actually felt a shift away from a timeline to a new timeline. So, we have a...
Was this before you arrived in Dominor?
I'm not sure. It's possibly not the words. No, I think the idea of temporal, a different temporal reality, different was coined by yourselves in Damanhur. But the idea of aligning oneself to a different timeline, because in NLP, there's lots of timeline walking, and you can move timelines and bring things from different timelines onto this timeline. So the idea of that has been a very familiar and exciting thing that I've done. But the word to align oneself to the optimum temporal reality, I think, is absolutely key.
I think it's a brilliant mantra to have.
And
can you repeat it once again? Because I think if we could seed this a bit in others in their meditation, if they found it resonant, could begin to use this, it would be potentially a very powerful tool.
Yes, it's first of all to center in one's meditation and to align, to give the command, give the instruction, to align. I'll do it for myself. I align myself with the optimum temporal reality. So it's basically as consciousness evolves and consciousness allows us to evolve our consciousness, then we are keeping in track with the highest possible outcome,
Potential.
the highest possible potential. Right. This shift that we're all going through, I think, is dynamic, and if we align ourselves with the highest consciousness aspect of this shift and keep ourselves aligned to it, then we have put our intent to becoming aligned with that particular level of consciousness, rather than allowing it to go down to a lower level in terms of vibration, if you like.
Right. Right.
I've certainly used this, and we have it on one of the programs in our bioresonance machine. We have a lot of personal development programs there. There's 15 or 16 there already, and one of those programs has got in it the align to the optimum temporal reality. And there's a little shift. There's a little kick. It's quite amazing.
Wow.
Energetically, you can feel it.
And people can run that.
Yeah, you do.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So, Victor, thank you for speaking to us a bit more about what's happening in terms of this shift. Yeah.